William is a young, naive, and foolish boy who was raised by his 3 undead foster parents. As he grew older, he learned all he could from them, and he even learned some things a little too early. The day when he would enter adulthood finally came, and he went ahead to even defy the god of the dead to keep his parents. When the souls of his parents passed on, Will dedicated himself to his goddess by doing her bidding and spreading her blessings. Amidst fighting demons and other deadly creatures, he would make friends and try not to be a complete nuisance. It's just another day where an old ghost is teaching a little kid about the world and magic. Nothing is definitely weird about this. Gus, the friendly ghost, teaches Will about the words of creation and demonstrates this by writing a symbol that turns into fire. After that, he uses another word to erase the flames. Will then goes to a room filled with statues of different gods of the land. While inside, Mary, a very pale-looking nun, comes to get him for dinner. As they're about to leave, Blood, a walking skeleton, walks in with his hunt for the day. Yeah, this kid is just casually being friendly with a group of undead guys. Very normal for a child of his age. While at dinner, Will's caretakers get into an argument with Blood because the skeleton suggested teaching the boy how to hunt. So far as it goes, since Will was found by the undead guys, he hasn't interacted with any other humans. It looks like there are still some secrets he doesn't know about yet. Back to the present. Blood is about to make Will join him in the land of the undead. After his fighting lessons, he goes for magic lessons, with Gus teaching him. He seems to have more aptitude for magic words and sometimes makes Gus feel like the dumb one. Then again, Gus starts talking about money, and you can just tell this old man was a greedy one before he died. Most likely died without having a sustainable income. Lastly, at night, Mary teaches him about different types of creatures. That's when he finds out that Mary and the rest used to be humans, but they made a contract with the god of the dead. Stagnate. The next day, lessons continue with Will and Blood hunting birds. The young boy still finds it hard to take a life, but Blood lets him know how necessary it would be. Of course, the talking skeleton would know about that. From there, they go sparring, and Gus is also there to see how Will uses his magic. Will was putting the pressure on Blood, but the tables turned, and he lost.
Not too shabby!
After the fight, Blood was talking about how great he, Gus, and Mary were. But he cut himself off. Blood and Gus got into a disagreement when Gus started saying bad stuff about Will. Blood reprimands the ghost, and he apologizes. After his training the next day, Will sneaks into the room where Mary is praying. He sees her engulfed in flames and tries to pull her out of it, but ends up with burnt arms. The stupid boy got injured because he was too curious about how Mary baked bread. Now, he has seen that she gets baked along with it. Also, I'm surprised an undead nun still prays to the Earth's mother. Mary apologizes for not telling him sooner, and he apologizes to them for snooping around. Will continues to learn about the concept of the gods from Gus and how fickle the concept of evil and good gods is. After that, he embarks on a 5-day silent prayer with Mary's guidance. This is, honestly, a lot of commitment for one person. The guy is like a paladin, magician, and warrior all at once. As the days went by, Gus continued to intensify his training and was stuffing Will with so many books. Then, he went to train with Blood, and easily defeated his first opponent. Seeing how easily he passed that challenge, Blood decided to turn it up a notch, and so he took Will to the ruins of a fallen city. They get to a point in an underground passage, and Blood abandons the boy, telling him to survive and escape. From killing one skeleton to this, it is just outright evil. Blood definitely wants to kill this boy. Will lights up the place with a spell on his shield and goes ahead to defeat some skeleton monsters. He goes ahead to defeat a more powerful skeleton and takes its spear in the process.
It's strong.
Will was almost at the exit when he encountered Gus, who summoned a rock golem and started attacking him straight away. I knew this old man was jealous of this boy. After defeating the golem, Gus's attacks increased and got more serious. Will was barely surviving, but managed to get close to the ghost. Just then, he drops his spear and tells Gus he doesn't want to kill him and would rather die by his hands. Not only is this boy stupid, but he's the dumbest human across centuries. Who the hell just gives up in front of an enemy like that? Gus played off everything as a lesson he was giving to the boy, but Will was still suspicious of him. When they got back, Will and Gus didn't speak of what happened to Blood and Mary. I don't know why he wasn't scared about his foster parent trying to turn him into a folktale. After that, Will continued practicing with his new spear, and he went back to the underground ruins to find new weapons and armor. Gus sent him to gather coins for something important. When he got back with the coins, Will found out that this ghost was nothing but a gambling addict. How does someone like this even have the talent for magic? Of course, Gus and Blood got him riled up, and the next thing we see is Will gambling very seriously with them. Mary came in and saved the day before Will trod down a path of debt and misery. After getting into an argument with Gus because of the secrets he's always keeping, Will leaves the room in anger and heads to the room with the god statues. There, Blood and Mary advise him about swearing an oath to a particular god during his coming-of-age ritual. Blood introduces Will to the land of alcohol and its awesome flavor. It was going well until they decided to go peek at Mary while drunk. Well, they got caught, and Will woke up the next morning to his first dripping dream. He's really going through everything at an alarming rate. After that, Will prepares for his duel with Blood. Before officially becoming an adult, he has to spar with Blood. The day arrives, and Mary comes along in case the skeleton decides to rip the chunk of muscle that is Will. The battle begins with Blood throwing out a barrage of attacks. Will was keeping up until he went for the kill. Blood decided to use his ribcage as a tool and turn the tide in his favor. Of course, this bag of bones was going to cheat. Due to Blood using that tactic, Mary gets upset about him using it, and they both get into an argument. After the fiasco, Blood congratulates Will for doing his best in the fight. The stupid skeleton still makes fun of him for not being able to win. I never knew something without a brain could be so annoying. Blood then gives Will one of his strongest demon blades as a gift. It's called Overeater, and it's a blade that can even cut down one of the gods. Blood then goes ahead to tell Will about the continent they're on, and the reason he was brought up there. The continent of Southmark was invaded by a demon king known as the High King of Eternals. It was Gus who thought of a plan to kill the demon king with Mary's and Blood's help. Will decided to butt into the story because he felt he knew how things ended, but only ended up looking stupid. Blood wasn't able to defeat the true nature of the demon king, so they decided to seal him beneath the land. That's when the god Stagnate showed up and offered to keep them undead, and in return, the god would get rid of all the demons in the city. It's not like they had a choice against the god of the undead. You'd think these so-called gods would just be nice and help out. But that's how Mary, Blood, and Gus became the guardians of the High King's seal. However, Will was found when some demons brought him as a sacrifice to break the High King's seal. While Blood and Mary decided to raise him, Gus was against it. The grumpy old man didn't even want a grandchild. As Blood and Mary say their goodbyes to Will, the clouds get dark and Stagnate shows himself. It looks like there was a contract for them to hand back their souls, but Gus appears to try and stop him. Gus goes all out with his spellcasting and does his best to bind Stagnate. He eventually manages to drive away the god of the undead. I know he's a senile old man, but those were some really awesome moves he pulled out. If only it truly worked out. Stagnate came back in another body and attacked them. With Blood and Mary losing their attachment to the High King, he came to collect them as his servants, according to their contract. Thanks to raising Will as their son, they easily lost their attachment. Stagnate then asks Will to become his servant and gives him until the next day to make up his mind. Will goes to sleep with a lot of regret in his heart, and he should. The stupid boy has been a problem in his past and current lives. He wakes up the next day to hear his foster parents cheering him up about the whole situation. He finally reveals to them that he has memories of his past life. I mean, what kind of son keeps such a secret from his parents? Mary chews him out for acting like a baby and tells him to straighten up. Will then makes up his mind to fight for them. and he asks the virtuous gods to bless his exploits. Early in the morning, he heads out to take on Stagnate in a fight. I know this boy is very stupid, but he just keeps on surprising me. Stagnate goes ahead to summon an army of skeletons, and Will starts to battle with them. Seeing how promising he is, Stagnate asks Will to join him once more.
Acceleration!
He offers Will a cup of blood to drink, but the boy uses it as an opportunity to land a surprise attack. Unfortunately, Will gets bitten by a snake and passes out. He wakes up in a place he had been before when he first died and meets the goddess of light once again. Not even that far into this show, and this stupid boy has managed to die twice just from being an idiotic person. He then tells the goddess that he wants to live a more fulfilling life and die as part of a family with Gus and the rest. That was his reason for rejecting Stagnate's offer. At that moment, Gracefield became his guardian deity, and he woke up. I honestly thought he was going to choose a more badass god, but oh well. He then offers up a prayer to his goddess and swears to defeat Stagnate. With a swing of his sword, he takes out the whole army of undead. Stagnate suddenly disappears, which makes Will rush straight for the temple. Hopefully he arrives in time to save his loved ones. By the time Will gets to the temple, he sees Gus bound to the wall, while Mary and Blood are about to have their souls taken. As Stagnate was about to lay his hands on them, the Earth Mother, Mater, showed up to save her precious daughter Mary. Then why in the world was she burning her up for up to 200 years? At that moment, Will used the opportunity to bait Stagnate into canceling his attack. While he was being thrashed by the boy, Stagnate swore to haunt Will's dreams until he gave in to his offer. That's quite a desperate god. Thanks to his stubborn nature, Will saved his family.
Curse you! I will remember that and bring you no rest.
They all decided to go whip out drinks and celebrate. But Blood and Mary suddenly weren't able to move. Despite Will's efforts, the two of them were only going to last for so long. So much for being a useful child. Will was definitely having a hard time coming to terms with living the rest of his life without them. Blood and Mary try their best to cheer him up and encourage him to live a good life. Blood told him to sleep with as many women as he wanted, and it just gives you an idea of the type of father he is. Mary went ahead to offer up the words you'd expect from a mother. As they spoke, Will got to see how they looked as humans and their real faces. Luckily, Gus arrived with the drinks just in time to celebrate Will's adulthood. That night, Mary's and Blood's souls were finally guided by Gracefield.
The holy light guided my parents.
And Will made graves for them by morning. Gus, however, was still going to stick around for some years, until Stagnate regained his powers. This old man really doesn't know how to let up. Blood and Mary didn't want that for themselves, because they would get greedy. It's only right that Gus remains the only greedy person here. The old man hands Will a pouch of treasure and gold as a final gift. Just how did he even get all that in the first place? Anyway, Will heads back to the temple to prepare himself for the new journey that awaits him. On his way out, Gus gives Will his last name, and the boy becomes William Maryblood. Combining the two names of parents seems to be a culture among elves, which Gus picked up. Will decides to take the letter G as a middle name as well. Of course, Gus started complaining like the old fool he was. They bid their farewells, and Will heads into the unknown world. We then see the time when Mary and Blood were still humans, and they were just flirting all through. It seems all their wishes came true before they finally passed. After being outside for a while, Will has only encountered demons he could easily defeat and wild animals. For the time being, he hasn't seen or interacted with any humans. Maybe they just don't like him, or they already know how stupid this kid can be. He comes across another abandoned city, but finds no one there. After offering up prayers for the wandering souls, he sets up camp in the woods. The next day, he kills a boar that was already injured by an arrow. An elf then shows up, and Will says something in ancient Elvish to gain his trust. Will nearly started apologizing like a wimp, but was able to negotiate with the elf and get a part of the boar. At least we can see that Blood's lessons weren't for nothing. To the elf, Will looks like all these eccentric believers who never stop praying. Will wasn't making it easier when he continued praying as they cooked the boar meat. He finally meets someone else, and he's about to chase the person away with his creepy devotedness. The elf says that he would come across a town if he followed the path of the river. Will tried offering to come along with the elf, but was quickly rejected. He then introduces himself, and the elf says his name is Meneldor. While Will sleeps that night, Gracefield shows him a vision where Meneldor seems to be in trouble. He just met the guy, and now he has to become the next Superman. Will jumps out of bed and quickly heads to the nearby town. He meets some humans and quickly saves them from a surprise attack. Not a single thought of trying to assess the situation before jumping into the fray crosses his mind. This boy definitely won't last long. It's only when Will sees the arrows that he understands that Meneldor is the one behind the attack on the town. He quickly knocks out the elf and his goons. The villagers were arguing about how to deal with the raiders while Will met with the chief elder. The chief was an old man who asked Will if he would protect them against any kind of attack. Of course, Will was too stupid and naive to sense the way the chief looked at him while asking that question. It seems the raiders came from a neighboring village that was attacked by demons. Meneldor tries to take the blame for everything and asks to be hanged. Will then shows how much more naive he is by offering to pay compensation to the villagers, and he hires Meneldor to accompany him. The refugees of the attacked village were saved, and Will headed out with his new elf companion to defeat the demons. Meneldor guided Will to where they would set up camp in the woods. The elf used a spell that shifted the land trees to cover them while they ate and slept. Will tried to make small talk with Meneldor, but the elf wasn't about to become friends with this annoying runt. The next morning, Meneldor goes ahead to scout and returns with information about the demons performing a ritual. With all the information, Will wasn't bothered, and was quite confident that he would just waltz in and crush them. They head to the temple and quickly take care of the demons like a hot knife through butter. While walking through the ruins, they come across a little boy who is barely holding on to life. Will comforts him and asks his goddess to guide the soul of the boy. On the other hand, Meneldor was disgusted at the little boy who tried reaching out to him and displayed just how much of a scumbag he is. Meneldor then apologized for making the wrong assumptions about Will. After that, they went ahead to lay the remaining undead to rest. They check out one more house where the ghost of an old lady known as Marple stays. Will quickly notices that she's a ghost of high rank and gets defensive. I can't believe this boy would just attack an old lady like that. The lady tells him not to worry about her going crazy. She was still very much in her ghost senses. Meneldor tries to get her to finally move on with Will's help, but she notices that he's been up to no good. Next thing, Meneldor starts throwing a tantrum and crying. The poor boy just wanted his mother. But now, he has to walk around with this wannabe warrior priest. Marple tells Will to take care of the elf and lets him know about the demon boss that's controlling the rest from deep in the forest. She then cheers up and advises Meneldor before finally passing on. The rest of the villagers came back, and they buried the dead. After that, they held a small feast to celebrate their return. It's never a bad time to whip out the alcohol and have fun. When that was done, Will met up with Meneldor, and the elf told him about himself, where he grew up, and about his mother. As if being an outcast elf was not enough, when he became an adventurer, he nearly died when a party member tried to poison him. Right from day one, he's been a nuisance that everyone tries to get rid of, until he met Marple, who took care of him. After his sob story, Meneldor offers himself to the goddess of light. With that done, they return to the village to continue with the feast. The next morning, Will notices that the village is badly destroyed, and the villagers need to buy some tools. Meneldor then tells him about a small port town known as White Sails. But before going there, Will asks him to come explore some ruins together. Hopefully, Meneldor doesn't get so close to the pearly gates again. They quickly scavenged some ruins and gathered enough money that could be used to rebuild the town. On their way back, they see a man and a little girl getting attacked by a giant ape. Will has a stare down with the ape, which makes it run away. I can't believe it gave up that easily. The little halfling girl quickly becomes obsessed with Will, after his feet, and introduces herself as Robina Goodfellow, and the man as Antonio the Hawker. For some reason, she just wouldn't stop talking. Will should have just allowed the ape to eat her. After the pleasantries, Menildor offers to protect them in exchange for some goods at White Sails since they're going there. Meanwhile, Robina just wouldn't stop with her annoying ranting. It's like someone opened a tap and forgot it was on. They all head out and arrive at a town where Robina puts on a show for the crowd. Antonio then uses Will's healing abilities to grow his business and sell goods. That's very smart and cunning of him. Both Robina and Antonio really have the whole business strategy planned out. After helping with healing people, Will gets dragged off by Robina. Hopefully, his ears won't fall off by the time she's done with him. The group then continues their journey while making more money as they pass through different villages. Then they get to Wheat Road and decide to set up camp for the night. Robina then goes ahead to sing the tales of Gus, Mary, and Blood. The story was about how the three heroes arrived at a village that was being attacked by a wyvern, and a half-elf girl was to be sacrificed to appease it. The three of them took on the wyvern after seeing how desperate a boy was when he came to ask for their help. Of course, the greedy Gus took whatever little payment the boy had. That part of him could never change. After defeating the wyvern, the heroes gave the boy and girl some gifts, while Gus revealed his true name to them. The boy ended up becoming Count Dagger in the Fertile Kingdom, while his half-elf wife still waited for the one who knew the true name of the sage to come to her. The next morning, Antonio gets into a small talk with Will and asks the boy what he truly wants. Will starts yapping about his sad story of wanting to learn more about the world and make friends. He should start by not boring the merchant to death. After breakfast the next morning, they all head out, and Will finally gets a view of White Sails. White Sails looks like a bustling town with a thriving economy. Robina quickly drags Will and takes him on a tour through the city market and streets. For someone who came from another world, why was he surprised about streetlights? Is this guy's brain working at all? They head to the public bath, and after that, they go to a restaurant. For the first time in a long time, Will was finally able to eat tasty food and didn't have to succumb to the daily bread he got after praying. After that, Will heads to the city temple to pay his respects, but all the high-ranking priests have gone out due to the recent demon attacks. Then he meets Bishop Bagley and tells the man why he's here. For someone who's a bishop, he definitely has too much jewelry on him, and he's a bit on the plus-size side of life. Bagley must be living the good life. The bishop has his suspicions, since Gracefield is no longer a popular god, and begins to question Will's understanding of the goddess's teachings. Bagley then asks for Will to be shown around the temple, and his name to be put in the registry. He starts throwing a tantrum like a little kid before dragging his fat butt out of there. The temple attendant then tells Will how crazy the bishop is on a normal day. I think we all saw that for ourselves. After getting shown around, Will and his group were allowed to stay in the temple guest rooms. They suddenly hear the sound of an emergency bell because a wyvern was sighted, and it began attacking the city. While Robina and Antoni helped the people get to safety, Will and Menildor engaged the wyvern. They attracted the wyvern to themselves, and Will set up a barrier to protect the temple. The wyvern was proving to be pretty stubborn despite its injuries. Will finally killed it by snapping the monster's neck. Blood really turned this boy into a meathead in a dire situation. The crowd cheered for their new hero, and Robina wasted no time to start singing about the new wyvern killer. The crown prince, Ethelbald Rex, then calls Will to his mansion. They take a seat, and Ethelbald asks Will to explain how he and Menildor took down a wyvern. The prince thought it was 4 people who took it down, but was surprised to hear that it was just 2 of them. The prince thanks him for his deeds, but Will continues to act humble. Ethelbald then lets him know that there's a black miasma that's infecting people and monsters and making them go savage. Will continues to be stubborn by requesting that he be allowed to hire mercenaries and face the demons in Beastwood. Meanwhile, Ethelbald is considering the option of killing this stupid kid in front of him. Will reads the situation and decides to prove his innocence rather than wait for a fight. At least he's starting to make better use of his brain. With the words of the Goddess of Light, he manages to make the prince laugh and lighten up the mood in the room. Bishop Bagley then barges into the room with his fat and repugnant attitude and accuses the prince of trying to steal Will without his permission. Ethelbald then lets him know what the situation is, and says he's thinking of appointing Will as a knight. This means Will would be under the jurisdiction of the prince and the temple at the same time. Ethelbald even went ahead to talk about sharing the profits equally with the temple. He was just talking about Will like he was some market commodity that they could do whatever with. I know the boy is stupid, but let's not make him a slave. Bagley was furious at the suggestion but said he'd think about it. After that, he left with Will back to the temple. On their way, Bagley and Meneldor get into a squabble because the elf wasn't about to let this old fart be his boss. While the two of them argue, Will gets into a small talk with Bagley's adopted daughter, Anna. Bagley then asks his daughter to get a suitable teacher for Will since the boy's ways were still from 200 years ago. He had to learn the revised words of the liturgy. Back in the temple, Bagley gives Will a lecture about why he doesn't use the god's divine protection. He feels he has to use other means, such as yelling and intimidating, to get things done as opposed to using protection. Bagley tries to dissuade him from becoming a paladin, but Will only reveals how much of a dimwit he is to the bishop. After that, Will and Meneldor go to a tavern to look for adventurers to recruit. Their request, which looked preposterous, caught the eye of a man known as Rastov, who agreed to join them. I guess Will isn't the only lunatic we have here. Back in their rooms, Robina hears that they'll be negotiating with Rastov, and she requests an interview with him. It seems Robina has interviewed him a couple of times, but his answer never changes. I'm surprised he can still keep up with this rambling brat. Rastov was really giving her a tough time coming up with a suitable story about him. Robina ends up dragging Will into the fray by suggesting a story about him and Rastov dueling. The next day, Will becomes a paladin and is knighted by Ethelbald. Having earned permission from the crown prince and the temple, Will set out with his group of adventurers to defeat the demons that lurked in Beastwood. They also brought human resources and supplies to villages that were safe. The bishop also assigned Anna and a couple of other priests to help out. This stupid boy grew up so fast, and he's now responsible for a lot of things and people. Before he knew it, Will was settling disputes that came up in different villages as well. Rastov and other adventurers would handle any demon beasts they heard of or came across. Slowly, Will was bringing life back to the towns in Beastwood. He finally understood what Gus said about money being able to fix problems. Hopefully he doesn't turn into a deranged gambling addict like his grandfather. Rastov comes along to tell Will that Pip and his party haven't returned after going into the woods for some days. Will then assembles a party and heads out to find them. While exploring, they come across the dead bodies of Pip and the rest. Then, they see the footprints of a huge demon. So much for Pip and his crew being experts at this kind of thing. After praying for the dead, they follow a trail that one of the guys made while running away from the demon. Suddenly, numerous demons show themselves and ambush Will's party. While facing off the monsters in front of them, a chimera sneaks up from behind and attacks Meneldor. Will loses his cool, and a monster attacks him, which causes his spell to misfire. Everything was going all right for this boy, but every day couldn't be Christmas. Hopefully, he doesn't get turned into a shish kebab. Filled with confusion, Will solely relied on his demon blade as he swung it around like a deranged fool. Luckily, he defeated the demons and healed Meneldor before passing out. Will woke up in a nearby town, and Rastov told him to get some rest, but this foolish boy still headed out while sulking about the whole situation. He should get a grip. He met Robina and Antonio on the way before going to see Meneldor. Will healed the elf while entertaining thoughts of being alone, and realizing that his companions weren't as strong as him. Isn't it too late for all these unnecessary theatrics? Will was heading back to the place where the demon beasts were before he got stopped by Meneldor. He speaks to Meneldor in such a way that it makes the elf really angry. Meneldor tries to stop him, and they get into a fight. But Will was wiping the floor with the elf's sorry butt. He broke one of Meneldor's arms but took on an attack from the elf. He should pick a side. How are you fighting someone and still protecting them? Meneldor managed to kick him and talk some sense into the fool. They got back to the village, where everyone was waiting and worried about them. Will heads inside and explains what happened. Then he apologized to everyone for making them worry. Just like all stupid adventurers. They all prepare to head back and face the chimera. Yeah, sure. It's not like they were about to die or anything like that. They spent the next few days gathering forces and scouting around to make proper plans. There wasn't actually any plan. Will just planned on charging forward with the rest of them like a bunch of meatheads. The day came, and their battle started. It was a battle between humans and monsters, and only one would emerge victorious. Will and Meneldor arrive at a monastery, where they come across the chimera that is hiding. Like little annoying bugs, Will and Meneldor were giving the chimera a tough time. Together, they defeated the chimera. And headed for where the dragon was. By the time they got there, they saw that Rastov had already defeated the monster. The most anticlimactic situation I've ever witnessed. How the hell did he even get there? They got back, and Rabina celebrated with more songs as usual. Meneldor then explains to Will how he has single-handedly taken jurisdiction over Beastwood. The stupid boy didn't even know what he was doing in the first place. The paladin continued his journey, hoping that one day people would be able to return to the city where he was brought up. That's all, folks. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing content.